Hello and welcome everyone to the Geek Remix podcast. My name is Stacy.
And I'm Mari.
And today we're talking to Tanya Depass, who runs the nonprofit I Need Diverse Games. So this actually started out of a hashtag, the hashtag I Need Diverse Games, which I believe Tanya started in a fit of frustration with the lack of diversity and representation in games, and especially on the production side, getting people into games. And the mission is to kind of help people get and stay in the industry in a variety of roles, not just programming, and to expand the diversity of thought and leadership within the space. So we wanted to kind of talk to Tanya about, basically anything that she wants to talk about.
Did we miss anything on your introduction?
Yeah.
No, that's it. I was legit angry about video games at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And threw that tag on a few tweets, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. I feel like that's the best way for a movement to start. It's just like, that's how our channel started.
I was mad. So I was playing, sorry to make it about me, but I was working at a games journalist place with all boys, and I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, this fucking sucks. I'm doing my thing my own way. Let's do Geek Remix. I called up Stacy. Do you want to do a thing? She said, yeah.
Yeah.
I was mad.
Yeah.
So, anyway, take it away, Tanya.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, first off, for having me. This is fun. I get to be a guest on a podcast.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a podcast. It's amazing. But my name's Tanya. I was mad about video games online almost 5 years ago at this point. And from that frustration of not seeing myself and others like me represented, the hashtag I Need Diverse Games came about. And from there, people picked it up. It was right time, right place. And it picked up steam and it hasn't stopped since. Out of everything I'm doing, we have a community. We stream. I was a guest on podcasts. And there were articles written about I Need Diverse Games, about what I do, and now I have no free time, and this is my full-on day job, 24/7, to run the organization, be the voice and face of I Need Diverse Games. And what we want to do is get more people in the industry, but also get them to stay in the industry, not just be like, here's some brown people, good luck, and not just be like, there's...
Now figure it out.
Right.
The continued support is very important.
Yes, because literally we survive on Patreon, and we do get some Twitch money, but Twitch is not our biggest presence. But really, if not for patronage and funding drives on occasion, I Need Diverse Games would not exist. One of the things we get to do as well is send 25 people to the Game Developers Conference for the last 4 years, including this year. So GDC very generously gives us 25 passes. And, we have people from the industry reviewing them, reviewing the applications, and of that we pick 25 and say, while we can't help you monetarily, the pass is worth $2,000. If you can get there, it is yours.
Wow.
So our 4th cohort will be there this year.
I mean, that's still pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. But going to GDC, even with the free pass, is still super expensive. So I want to get to a place where I can not just give the pass as long as we stay in the program, but something to defray the cost. Because even if you go the super cheap route, share a room, fly budget, you're still looking at anywhere from $500-$600 to maybe a couple thousand if you're international, because it's held in a very expensive city, San Francisco. Yeah. I'm going strictly because I'm speaking. If I didn't get a chance to speak this year, I probably wouldn't go.
Yeah. I was actually, I heard some people talking about that, how, actually because GDC is in San Francisco, it's getting tougher for international people, not only because of cost, but also, visa stuff, too.
Yeah, one of the people we offered a pass to could not get a visa approved.
Man.
And every year we've had at least one or two people where the money, as long as they could get the pass, it was okay. But then getting a visa was the real showstopper for them.
Yeah.
I guess that can be another barrier to entry that just stops people from being able to be included.
To participate, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if you are a developer, and let me be clear, every role that involves getting a game out the door means you're a developer. It's not just people who code the games, not just people who create the art and everything else. That is the conference to go to. It's the place to network and everything else. And I wish we had a bunch of smaller conferences with that same kind of reputation of you can't miss going to this conference, you can't miss going to this event. But also a lot of people that have gone to GDC multiple years, they just go to see their friends, they go to network. Sometimes they don't even go to GDC for the talks or anything else. It's there for them to do business. It becomes strictly a networking, sit down, have coffee, do deals kind of thing. And for other people new in their career, just getting ready to graduate, it's one of those things where they can meet a developer of a game that they are all about. That may be the game that convinced them to go into development. And for them, for some people, it's almost a dream trip.
Yeah. I have a question. So if anybody is listening right now and is hearing all these opportunities that you're helping facilitate, and how do they get in contact with you?
Well, we have a general email, indg@ineeddiversegames.org. You can hit us up on Twitter, which is ineeddivgms. I have an email, Tanya, first name, @ineeddiversegames.org. I'm trying to think of other ways. We have a Facebook page, so if you leave us a message there, we'll try to get back to you, though it's probably the least effective way to get in touch with us. Honestly, our general email, or if it's something where you want to discuss diversity consulting, something like that, hitting me up directly at Tanya@ineeddiversegames.org or indg@ineeddiversegames.org would be the best way.
Yeah. That sounds really cool, and I'm really glad that you're able to facilitate more consulting opportunities. If you hear a dog moaning, that's the dog. Don't worry about him.
We're okay. A dog's just being a dog.
But do you think, sorry to jump in, but do you think your consulting and stuff has made a positive impact on the games that you've helped?
I think so. I did do a talk at ArenaNet way back when. It feels like it was 20 years ago. But before the one of the latest DLCs came out that actually had good black people's hair in it, that showed a variety of skin tones, I would hope that the talk I gave there influenced that in some way. I can't say for sure. And people have told me I've made a difference. They've stopped to think about the ways in which they do or don't do representation, in the ways that they kind of don't think about the things that any of us might, like an absence of female presenting characters, an absence of people of color, absence of obvious LGBT representation. So I'm doing a small part, and it helps, hopefully. And it's really humbling because I love video games. I love the hobby. I love tabletop. And it's humbling to think that, what came out of me being mad about video games is actually having an impact in the industry.
Yeah, because you grew up playing, like, D&D and NES games, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm a little bit older than D&D itself. But, I grew up with that. But I also grew up poor, so a lot of stuff was second what's the word, hand-me-down. Or, I got to go play with friends, stuff like that, because I grew up poor, no shame in it. We were on food stamps and public assistance. So a lot of what I got to do was either secondhand until I got older and got a chance to work and earn money myself. But I've been gaming for a long time.
Yeah.
I think your story kind of makes people realize that they have a lot more value in their opinions than it can feel like. I mean, you're kind of shouting into the void. Mm-hmm. But then other people are like, yeah, I feel the same way. Finally, somebody said it. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not the first person to have talked about diversity. I'm not the first person or last that will talk about it. Actually, one of my friends, and ironically, before all this happened, I got to go to GDC in early 2014 with a friend who wanted to get in the industry as an artist, and she wanted company. And I went. I got to see a chance to see Monver Air, formerly of BioWare, give a talk about racism, etc., in the industry, and that really lit a fire under me. And, you know, it was just something I thought about, because it's not like I'm the most woke person on the planet. It's not like I always get it right. But those kind of things where, you know, you think about it, but you have that light bulb moment of, oh, that's what's not right about this game with only white dude protagonists. Or if I see a woman portrayed, then she's either a hooker, a victim, she doesn't live long, she's not...
A mother, a girlfriend.
Right,
yeah.
or, you know, she doesn't have a place in the world other than a plot point if she lives very long. And it was just that light bulb moment of, I've been playing these games, consuming this media all this time, and it's always been there, that awareness has been there, but I never took action about it until recently.
Well, your actions are probably more powerful than a lot of people want to give you credit for, or anybody for. And I think that's part of the way the system keeps everybody fucking down. And so I'm glad that even though social media can sometimes feel shitty, it's also given a voice to a lot of people who never had a voice before in a way that's never been given.
Oh,
before.
Definitely. Because there are people... so for those who don't know, speaking of D&D, I'm on a official Wizards of the Coast D&D show. We do the show here in Chicago. And, you know, I did the Stream of Many Eyes where our show launched last June. And, you know, I've talked about it. I've had a chance to do a few tabletop panels. And I was at Gen Con last year as part of the Guests of Honor series that they're trying to do. And, you know, granted, with current events in tabletop, I don't know if I'll be back at Gen Con unless they make some changes. But someone wrote me a beautiful letter about seeing someone like themselves on panels and talking about this and not feeling alone. And I burst into tears when I got it, and I still get a little weepy when I think about it, because it was just one of those things where I was feeling really low and felt like I wanted to quit. Because there are days where it just feels like everyone wants to take and take and take and not realize the labor, both emotional and literal, that this work is.
Oh, yeah, the whole, like, debate me. Why won't you debate me?
Not so much that. It's the people will message you and want, like, you to read a whole book and do a diversity consult and not offer to pay you. Or they'll offer you something ridiculous like $50 or $100 to read like a 20,000 word manuscript and give them critique and do all this other work. And they literally don't see the value in what you do. And it's not just me. There are plenty of people I know who have done I'm trying to be an advocate for diversity and I'm beating this drum. I am... you know, yelling at people, not literal yelling, but, you know, it's perceived as yelling, especially when you're a black female. I am making these points, and it gets to the point where everyone, it's almost like a cycle. You see people like, I thought that too, I'm glad someone's saying it. And then you ride the crest, and people are excited, and they support you. And then if you keep doing it, you get to a point where you burn out on the 101 conversation. You burn out on the... hey, did you know that people like me are humans too? And why do I have to keep telling you this every time we have something come out like Battlefield 5 with a woman on the cover, or Battlefield 1 with a black dude on the cover, and having an openly gay character in a game is not SJW bullshit. It is the fact that people like us exist in the real world, but you want to act like games are so apolitical and a microcosm of whatever it is you think gaming should be, that you forget you're not the only one playing these games. You get in the cycle of, I've said this, how many times can I say this? How many times can I tell the same group of people? Because it's always, and I'm sure if you've gone to conventions or watched any kind of talk at a diversity panel, you'll always get somebody that gets up. I can't find black people or women or queer people. How do I find them? I want to do better. Please hold my hand. And I didn't apparently pay attention for the whole hour you were talking. I was at GDC one year after being more in the industry, And Rami Ismail led a panel of Muslims in the industry. Literally, the first question, so how do I find more Muslims in the industry? And I'm like, you're literally looking at a panel of 5 people.
Yeah.
And Rami...
You found him.
What?
You found him. Like,
right, he found him.
Not,
but it was also, Rami was like, there's a thing called Google.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm getting a little in the weeds. Sorry about that.
No, this is great.
This kind of reminds me of one of the articles that you wrote about how black women are not unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
Black women who game are not unicorns. And, Mari and I were talking about this, like, after we looked at this, and because we've heard similar conversations about, like, people will be like, oh, it's so hard to find, like, women that are funny that play games, and we're like, we're literally surrounded by them. Like, if you cannot find them, like, that is your problem. They're everywhere.
My personal opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like if you make a welcoming environment, people will, like, feel welcome to do it. Because I feel like a lot of our fans, we get a lot of comments from fans being like, hey, I'm a person of color, hey, I'm a black girl, or hey, I'm whatever, and thanks for speaking up from my point of view, or thanks for, like, being understanding of this type of character.
Or just not being a jerk.
So they feel comfortable enough to say it, because I understand that a lot of different other communities, they might just, like, not say what their identity or who they are, or what their ethnicity is, because they're afraid of being attacked. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, even this day and age, because I stream on Twitch still, for whatever reason. I haven't made up my mind about what I'm going to do. But there was someone who came in from a raid from another broadcaster I know, who, from appearances and from what they said, made it sound like finding black women on Twitch was so hard, and that, like, they found a unicorn. And,
boy.
and they, from what they said, they're also a black female, a little older. And it's kind of like, but there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
There's so many of us. And I just feel like if people actually got outside their comfort zone and get out of their usual social circles, because, there's whole groups of people making it their mission to make spaces welcoming for people like them, because the overall gaming sphere is not. Aside from the creepy stalker I've been dealing with, I would get things ranging from asking if I'm a man, saying I'm a man, demanding to know weird things about my gaming habits, asking if I'm a gamer, making comments about my voice if I don't have a mic on. And these are the kind of things that push black women away from this space or being visible, because it wears you out. It is tiring.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I think another thing is, if you look at the top streamers, and a lot of the top streamers are in the same groups, and they, like, promote each other. But if you look at them, it's always, like, the same type of person. And I feel like maybe if people networked a little bit outside of themselves, they could also help the people who are watching them find different types of people. But that's just my opinion. I just feel like, a lot of people at the top are very much the same, and, like, that's not, like, their fault or anything. It's just...
Well, they're insular. They don't seek out other people like themselves. I mean, it's Black History Month as we chat. Mm-hmm. And for the second year in a row, Twitch is doing a thing where they highlight a different black streamer every day on the front page. Without fail, there are people that get mad and say that it's racist, it's unfair, when's White History Month. Like, you could set a watch to the responses. But
every month is White History Month.
Right, every day is White History Day, if you really think about it. But they ignore the fact that systemic oppression and everything else has hobbled black people from the get-go. The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't done out of the goodness of Abe Lincoln's heart. It was a business deal. Mm-hmm. So everyone that acts like, well, slavery was X number of years ago, but the systems that helped that oppression, that helped slavery flourish, treated us as less than human, are still in place. They're still prospering.
there's a lot of property laws that still negatively affect. I'm sure you know all this, not to lecture you about it, but I mean, a lot of people don't realize that like a lot of people's grandparents were slaves, and like that makes a difference. That still has lingering effects. It wasn't that long ago.
Right. And, you know, people want to act like Black history is just slave stories or the one person who made it, the one who's not like all the other Black people. I mean, look at how many slave stories have won Oscars.
Yeah.
We are more than the share of our collective pain, and that's a whole other conversation. But I just feel like a lot of people have a very firm idea of what they think Blackness is, and to them, a lot of people unfortunately have determined that being on the internet, playing video games, being in technological spaces, and add a modifier if you're a woman, add another modifier if you're queer, add yet another double modifier if you're trans to that, disabled, neurodivergent, and people act like you really are a unicorn when you go, hey, by the way, I'm over here, I do exist. So it's hard because I aside from that person in my chat the other day, I was in Chicago giving a micro talk about gaming and streaming, and a dude looked me dead in the face and said, Black women don't play video games. I'm like, I'm standing in front of you.
That is really rude.
That's so rude.
Oh, it's incredibly rude, but it was like, bro, I'm literally in front of you. I may have even, no, I wasn't wearing anything that said Twitch on it, but it was like, I just said I'm a Twitch partner that I stream almost every day. I grew up with a controller in my hand, basically. And he was like, well, and he basically was, and this sounds terrible, but I feel like there's a lot of people, especially the older Black generation that I've come across when it comes to these things, like maybe 10 to 15 years older than me, and I'm in my mid 40s. That if they don't personally know anyone like this, if they don't see it, then it does not exist. There's no object permanence of, I don't ever see Black women playing video games, so therefore it does not exist. Or you can go the other way with the tired equation with the we can set a clock by of Black dudes without fail. It's always some hotep, ashy ank motherfucker who gets on Twitter with the cold, dirty dishwater take of Black women don't play games and they're out here just trying to catch a man.
I hate that shit.
Like,
what do you think? I spend all this money for your weird penis? No.
I love that you said your weird penis. Well, it's because let's be real, people who are listening. Dick is free and plentiful. I'm not spending $500 to try to impress nobody.
yeah.
No, men are easy. Sorry, it's true.
I mean, nobody is arguing that, but the idea that I'm gonna go through all this trouble to learn a hobby, to spend $400, $500, $600 on a game system, games, accessories, and or if I then go on to streaming, to spend the extra money to stream this and deal with the abuse and bullshit that comes with streaming as a Black woman on the platform, if I choose to have a camera on, that's not to get no dick. I can go buy a better dick than that with that same money.
Exactly. Just go outside.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like people just, they don't think it through. Like, look, why would you want to do that? You know, it's like,
I think they're overvaluing their own value. To be honest, I'm so sorry, but it's true.
I mean, but remember, going back to this, and this can tie into why we don't see a lot of women, especially Black women and Black people represented in the industry and in gaming in general. Men, especially white men, have been told over and over they're the masters of all they survey. And that includes gaming. So, I phrased it as gamer manifest destiny. Because these bros, and I'm going to call them bros, and if anybody listens get mad, deal with it. You will not be the first person to get mad at me on social media. These gamer bros have been told that gaming, especially PC gaming, is their dominion. And if you don't play Dark Souls, if you don't play every game on the hardest difficulty, if you're not keeping up with the Joneses and your rig is the sickest rig ever that can like make you toast, give you a hand job, and send you to work, then you're not really a real gamer.
No, I've been told this, and I have the sickest rig ever.
Right?
Like, I have a sick rig, and you know what the real test for a gamer is? It has nothing to do with your computer, nothing to do with what games you play. It's called gamer water. And it's the cup of water you keep next to your computer. If you have a really old cup next to your computer, you're a gamer.
Oh, you mean that cup of water where you're like, oh, wait. Oh,
how long has this been here?
Right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, it's warm, but I'm thirsty and I don't want to move because I need to beat this level.
Yeah.
Or
that's the real test.
One of the things that really bothers me around the whole, like, you know, when we sit here and we'll talk about like, oh, like, but you know, I've been in gaming forever and like I played NES games, like all that stuff, like, but at the same time it's like, but the women who are just now getting into games, like the black girls who are like just picking up a PS4 for like their first console,
and they're like 16,
they're still just as legitimate as people who've been playing since they were like 6. And I hate the
you're not allowed to suddenly want to play video games.
Yeah, you're not allowed to like develop the interest. It has to be like an interest from birth in order for you to be legitimate somehow, which is just ridiculous. I mean, especially with, you know, I also think of like people who play a lot of mobile games who maybe don't have the money to go out and buy like consoles or like a high rig PC. Like mobile games have really made it so that like democratizing video games so that like anybody can play games on their phone. Like you can play Pokemon on your phone, like stuff like that. And like that's just as legitimate.
And Stardew Valley now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because friends of mine used to have a podcast strictly about mobile gaming, and they would always have to deal with but mobile games and your girls and all the other stuff that everyone tried to demark them as not real gamers. It's like, look, I know some people that went hard on Candy Crush. Like my partner, we used to play MMOs together and stuff, but he plays mobile games more than anything else now. And I don't think anyone's going to ever tell him he's not a gamer because he's playing games on his phone during his commute.
I remember when I was a teenager, I would have so much anxiety about going to GameStop because I would buy games like Viva Pinata, and I would sometimes play more hardcore games, but that's just what I felt like playing at the time, just cute games. Even though they were on my Xbox 360 or like Psychonauts and just games that were a little bit more what I wanted at that time. And I would just be so embarrassed, like being like, I'm trading these games in to buy this other game. And I'd be like, okay, like everyone here knows that I'm not a real gamer and like all this stuff. I would just have anxiety about it just because of the stigma. They probably didn't even care. I just
right.
Like,
yeah, it's weird what people think because like I don't know if you get this when you stream, but what I'll get a lot of times is like the immediate question, what difficulty are you playing on? And I'm like, the one where I get to enjoy the $70 game I just fucking bought. That's what.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not proving anything to anybody, but like, oh, look at me. I like ran through Assassin's Creed Odyssey on this super hard difficulty. Cool, no one's paying me.
Yeah.
We play on the easiest mode for recording. On my own, I play a little bit harder, but when we're recording, we only have so much time to do things.
Yeah.
And so, and then I just go like, if you don't like it, fucking watch someone else. Bye. Yeah. I have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
We're not here to do like no damage Resident Evil speed runs. That's not our audience.
Yeah, and it's weird because like or the backseating. I'm sure I get it more because I'm a woman. Because I decided to finally get the Resident Evil 2 remakes. I grew up with Resident Evil, and I was like, it's a little on the gory side, but you know what? I'm gonna run with it. It's a game. I know it's a game. I had people backseating me, and I was like, do you all realize that I'm older than the original game? Do you realize I still have the original disc somewhere?
Oh, boy.
Like, do I need to go get every copy of Resident Evil I own at this point?
Mm-hmm.
because I was gonna, is this your first time playing Resident Evil? Like, oh my god, suddenly because they remade 2, I'm just gonna run out and get this game. It's like, you do know that just because people stream doesn't mean they run out and get the newest and hottest, or that I've never touched a Resident Evil game. Horror's not my genre to like to stream or prefer to play, but this is also nostalgia feel for me. And it just gets tiring. And you know, when we do get to see ourselves in games as black women, it's hard because, and we were chatting a bit before we started recording, you know, there's Apex Legends with a black female character and a black non-binary character. There's Vivienne from or I keep thinking Vivienne, and I want to say Aveline from Assassin's Creed. Vivienne from Dragon Age Inquisition. Nadine from, oh god, what's the dude who wants to be Lara Croft, the Nathan Drake game? Uncharted 4.
Yeah.
Wow, I know that's going to get people yelling at me. But you know,
not a real gamer, didn't remember her name perfectly.
Yeah. I know, don't let people like rake me over the coals because I can remember the exact title and the year it came out in the publisher, even though I could reach over and get it. But you know, Nadine, and then we also get Nadine and Chloe in a DLC, a spin-off adventure. And there are people that just act like the game industry is under the thumb of their supposed nemesis, the SJW, because we get a few out of the couple hundred or so games that release every year. We get a few that are not the same scruffy white dude protagonist that gets the chick and saves the world. And it's tiresome. It's very tiresome, and you know, that's part and parcel of why I think people were receptive to what I said in a moment of frustration.
Mm-hmm. Stacy told me about a study where men will feel like a room is overwhelmed by women if it's just 30% women. So I think the same kind of thing.
They'll feel like it's a majority if it's like 30%, because
they're so used to seeing no women.
And I don't know what the exact numbers are, but basically what the study was showing is that when men are used to male-dominated spaces, even like a modest percentage of women feels like a lot. It's the same thing with like how much women talk.
So I think that can translate to having main protagonists who are people of color, or just not white dudes, or even not straight white dudes. Like, if you, because last year's E3, everyone was like, "There's gays everywhere," and I'm like, there was 2 gays. There were 2 gay people.
Yeah. We're taking over, didn't you know?
Yeah. So I can totally see how intersectionally, oh, there's a black main character. We did it for the year. It's done. It's so many, and you're like, that's one though. That's one.
Yeah.
Tanya, do you mind if I bring up the game that you were telling us about before we started recording? The one that you consulted on?
Sure. So, as a disclaimer, I was a paid consultant on Far Cry New Dawn, which just released as of this recording yesterday on the 15th. So, we can talk about just a limit of what I can say that I worked on. I can just say that I was a paid consultant.
Yeah. So
what did you work on, if you don't mind us asking?
I actually can't talk about that.
Okay. Sorry, never mind. Sorry, never mind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the reason that I wanted to mention that is because the game has the two twins are black women.
Yep.
And are actually voiced by women of color.
No, they're voiced by 2 black women specifically.
Black women, sorry. Great voice acting, and just, I mean, it's funny because we always talk about how like girls don't just like pink games, but we had never played a Far Cry game before on our channel, and this one, like when we saw the trailer for it, the combination of the twins characters and just like the whole feel of it, we were like, wow, I really want to pick this up and play it.
They put flowers everywhere and had 2 women, so we were like, yeah, we have to buy it.
Oh yeah, I'm really happy that Mickey and Lou are in the game, that, you know, they have, that the game is colorful, and that 2 black women are in charge of a faction post-apocalypse. That makes me so incredibly happy. And they're just like cool in the sense of like, but they're like hardcore black chicks, and they're in charge. We don't get to see that. Like, we had Nadine in Uncharted 4, but she still had a white dude basically fuck her over. Like, no, this is their racket. So I'm just a little bit into it. I did get a review copy, a press copy. Troy Musa actually wrote a review for I Need Diverse Games, and I'm loving it. So if you like Far Cry, but also if you want to actually see a game that has 2 black women in it, that has other people of color, because one of the resistance leaders is a mixed race Asian woman, and then...
Dude, I was so excited about that, because I'm half Japanese, half white.
Yay.
And I was like, oh my god, because I'm not saying, like, you know, half Japanese people need to dominate the world, but when I see it, I'm like, ah!
No, that's
me.
legit. And, like, you know,
Yeah.
she's a character. Well, she is a character that is not yet born in Far Cry 5, but, like, you know, her parents are there, and we get some carryover characters. We get a spoiler. Some characters from Far Cry 5 do come back in New Dawn, but it's not just all white dudes running the apocalypse. And even if I'd not gotten a consult, if I'd not gotten a review copy, I'd been like, take all my fucking money.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I love it. But on the other side of that, for the love of God, Ubisoft, please put some natural hair in the game that does not look terrible. Mickey and Lou's braids look great. Not happy they're blonde, but they've got braids. It's natural hair. Because who's got time to go to the shop during the apocalypse?
It's the apocalypse. Where are they getting that bleach to not, like...
I mean, you can make bleach. If you figure they've, in the time they've grown up, or maybe, I mean, I'm guessing they're older. I mean, because they're adults, so they would remember a time prior to the apocalypse. So they probably would have figured out how to make bleach. It's a common thing. Or if they spend all their time in the sun and their hair is bleached at this point. We don't yet know a lot of backstory for Mickey and Lou, so not quite sure why they're blonde at this point, but it's not like black folks don't dye their hair either, because maybe somebody figured out hair dye in the 17 years since Far Cry 5. But you get all these people of color, the people in your compound that have leadership roles are people of color, so I'd been like, here, give me the money, or take my money, the fry gift, because it's just there. These are people surviving post-apocalypse, post-a-bomb going off, and it's a bright, colorful world. Yes, I know if you want to be that person about science and quote-unquote realism, that we probably wouldn't have a settlement and flowers and vegetation, wouldn't actually have sprouted like this in just 17 years, but it's a video game. If y'all can accept people being demigods and parkouring off like 200-foot cliffs like I do in Assassin's Creed Odyssey without damage, I think we can let that go.
Not to mention the copious quantities of spray paint.
Right, so it's like, I'm not sure how y'all are painting everything, this Pepto Pink, but it's a colorful apocalypse with a lot of brown folks. Please and thank you.
Yeah.
I understand that, like, it's just really special to me when I see mixed Asian characters, even though I know there's, like, 3 other people like me in the world. It's exciting to me. Because it's either, like, a fully Asian person, and it's a very specific experience from my life. So whenever I see it, I just get really excited, which I understand everyone has their diverse moment, but I'm just like, seeing her, I was like, yes, you know.
I'm really glad the game can give you that moment, and I hope you let Ubisoft and the Far Cry team know that, because as much shit as people want to give Ubisoft, and it annoys me to no end when I talk about Ubisoft, or I say I'm in an event, because more and more they've said, hey, you can now say that you're going to this event, and here are places you can take photos and share on social, where people feel the need to use that as an excuse to tell me how much they hate Ubisoft, EA, fill in the blank of whatever thing I'm at. And I'm like, I don't care. That is the fast track to getting a block to me, because I did not ask you. I don't care. And no one's making you buy the game. And that's where I think a lot, to kind of circle back to our topic, is people act like publishers are putting guns to their head to make them buy these games with representation they're clearly angry about. Nobody's making anyone buy Far Cry New Dawn if they're that mad about 2 black chicks in it. if you're really that mad and that bent out of shape about a game having a Nadine in it, a Vivienne, if you're still mad about Nilin in Remember Me, who is also a mixed race protagonist, or any other game that does not focus you, no one's making you buy it. But the hypocrisy is these people will scream and yell and make a big deal and talk about forced agendas and politics in their games and lifestyles being crammed in their face, but they still go buy the game. Their $60 at the end of the day means F all to these publishers. And it's not like enough of them will gather together to make a dent in profit. Most of the games that they're so mad about that finally wise up and realize my money is just as green, your money is just as green, or digital, or whatever we have by the time people listen to this. It's about money, because when you ignore diversity and inclusion, you leave money on the table. And these companies may or may not do it because it's the right thing to do, but they're realizing they're getting left behind. They're not seeing the profits of the people who constantly don't see themselves reflected. Because if you keep making games where I don't see myself, I'm not going to buy your game.
Yeah, when it comes to representation like that and the whole money on the table thing, it's important for those people to keep in mind that whoever the company is, if it's a big company and they're making this game, they did the math on, is it worth it? Because like they're thinking of business decisions. Like, yes, they might be like, oh, we just want to do it because it's great. But also, like, they thought about, is it worth pissing off those crybabies who are going to be mad that there is a black woman protagonist or, you know, a queer person or whatever in this game? And when they sat down and ran the numbers, they decided, you know what? We're going to make more from having the representation than we would from, you know, appeasing people who don't want it. So
I made a video called Do Politics Belong in Video Games? And one of the arguments I was trying to counter was, oh, video games, it's mostly white men, so why even put it there? And I sourced some studies where it's like, actually, according to all these studies, to black gamers, gaming is considered a positive attribute, like instead of something that's a waste of time. So like that's definitely a demographic you want to go towards. And also Latino gamers and stuff, they are a very large rising demographic, so of course you're gonna want to represent the people who are buying your games. Like, duh.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's just you would think that someone that claims their whole argument is ethics in video games and consumer rights would realize, but if I, as the consumer, want to see myself, it is totally fair that if I don't continue to see myself in these games, then I will be like, F and you. I'm not buying your game, I'm not supporting you. If you make games for people like me are constantly a joke, fodder, killed off, or just plain don't exist, that is my right as a consumer, but when I flex that as a consumer, I'm forcing an agenda. White bro dude, when he gets mad about a female character, a female soldier, a queer character, I mean, look at how people responded to Soldier 76 being shown as gay. It's in the lore, we'll never see it in the game, but hey, that means something for a lot of older queer dudes who don't get to see themselves. Mm-hmm. That's having Tracer be announced as queer. It's going to mean something for all the chicks who don't get to see themselves. And granted, it is not out there, it's not obvious, but at least we got that much. And it'd be better if Overwatch was a game where we got to see relationships and got to see more of the character. It would make total sense. But it's also a shooter. Like, who's got time for a relationship when you're trying to run for your life? So even if it's not out there in a gameplay sense, at least we know this. And these will be the same dudes that get mad and claim you're forcing an agenda, pushing things down my throat, when developers can do what they want. It's their property.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I always liked about character creation, or one of the things I really liked about Mass Effect's character creation, is that I could make all my characters half Asian. And I was like, yeah! And then I'd sit there with my mom like, Mom, look! And that was like the only time she'd sit with me.
Aww.
And I was just like... And then also, you know, the movie and I know this movie's bad. Like, I know it is. But to all the boys I've loved before, it stars, like, a half Asian, half white girl. And I was like, I know this movie's dumb, but I'm going to watch it 3 more times.
Yep.
I guess it's just, I'm a sucker, and that's okay. And that's what makes me happy, you know?
It doesn't make you a sucker. You are finally getting that. Even if it's just a moment, if it's a crumb of representation, it's something. And that's where I think the conversation needs to go. Not our conversation right now, but the overall diversity inclusion conversation. Because I think we're at a point where people can finally realize inclusion is good, diversity is good, but we're not at a point where we get more than one of each, like a Color of Benetton ad.
That's true.
Or we don't get well-rounded characters. We get people who are not of that ethnicity, that marginalized group, writing and creating these characters. And then when they get it wrong, they get mad about it and stomp their feet and go, well, I was trying. So we need to get past this 101, realizing people unlike yourselves, if you're a cis, straight, white, able-bodied dude, A, exist, B, are human, and C, belong in spaces. Because that's the fight I'm sick of having. I should not have to deal with some dude trying to quiz me on something if I'm walking around with a gaming t-shirt at a convention, or if I say on Twitter, oh, hey, I'm going to pick up Division 2 and decide to quiz me on, like, some minuscule fact about the Division 1, like that's going to be some gotcha moment. You know, we need to move on from black women exist, black women play games, to how can we get them in the space, support them, and make sure they stay. And that's where I'm trying to move our mission, because I think we've established diversity is important. Now can we get to the why and act on the why and do more than, here's a code camp, here's a laptop for 6 weeks out of the year, good luck.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things that I really appreciate about your mission with I Need Diverse Games, is that it's not just about, like, getting people to code. It's about, you know, setting them up with a support network and getting them into, like, other roles besides just programming. Like, the programming is great, but you really want to see people represented, you know, across the board. It just, like you said, when you have characters that are written by people who are maybe outside of that experience, and they're maybe not getting things right, and you just sit there wondering, like, didn't you have anybody on staff that you could ask? Didn't you think to call a consultant? Didn't you think to, like,
oh,
you know?
Like with that latest DLC from Assassin's Creed, and I was like,
oh yeah,
did you not have any gay employees to tell you this was bad?
To tell you this was not a good idea? Yeah.
Yeah, I played that, and the thing is, unfortunately, someone spoiled it for me. Which, at first I was really mad because I hate spoilers. But then it was like, I'm kind of glad I went in knowing this was coming. Because I don't know how I would have reacted had I not known this fuckery was coming. Because my Cassandra, my Alexios were like, their motto is, let's be gay and do crime. We're going to bang everybody in Greece we can. I'm still working on Xenia. Working on it as a Cassandra. So for this disingenuous bullshit to be the DLC of, oh, by the way, you're going to do the white picket fence thing because we need to genetically carry on the line. I'm like, but I'm in the middle of saving Greece. What makes you think I got time to stop and have a baby or want a baby? What the fuck?
Additionally, in the story, they get the blood from a spear. So you don't need to have the baby.
Right.
They just added that in.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why are you like this?
And, you know, it would be one thing if the game was, like, linear narrative from the get-go, or if they just didn't spend so much time marketing it as, like, you can be gay in this game. And then, like,
at E3, they were like, guess what? It's gay! And everyone was like, yeah! And then they're like, just kidding, though. Straights win.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh. And then I'm just sitting here thinking also, because when the DLC came out, I jumped into it, but I'm not quite done. I've got a fight that I can't beat. The Medusa is beating the brakes off me like I owe her money. So you mean I stopped literally in the middle of this whole mission, settled down. Well, I mean, I've run across Alcabiada's a lot. There's a lot of stopping and fucking in my game. But to be fair, but it's like, okay, so we've settled down. We've got a house. We've had a kid that's apparently a few months old at this point. To where I've established a relationship with the people in the town, and they know me when I go to the market. How fucking long do you stop your life for this heteronormative bullshit? And for me, it was, you know, a little TMI personal experience. I don't have children. I don't want to have children. And it wasn't triggering me, but it threw me, like, off a cliff, like our protagonist of, hold on, I didn't agree to this having a baby. What the hell?
Yeah. I remember when we played the beginning of Fallout 4, and in the first, like, 30 seconds of that game, you're like, oh, you're in a hetero relationship, and here's your baby, and, like, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember being like, what? And responding so negatively to it, because, like, those games are so all about
doing whatever you want.
Doing whatever you want, be whoever you want to be. Like, it's your world, just, like, go run around. And it's like they literally shoehorn you into this in, like, the first, like, the opening cutscene. And it was just kind of like, what?
What's going on?
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
but
it's wild.
Yeah. I did want to ask you if you want to talk about the Smithsonian.
Oh, yeah. So I can finally talk about this.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, the Smithsonian American Art Museum does an arcade every year called the Sam Arcade. And I was asked to help jury the games that are submitted and also to give a keynote. So August 3rd and 4th, I will be in DC at the Smithsonian Art Museum. A link will be in the show notes. I'm super excited because I'm a big museum nerd. I am that person you can drop me off at a museum and just make sure you come and get me for dinner and text me and make sure that I've eaten, because I will wander around a museum literally all day as a tourist, especially like if it's someplace that I know I'll never get back to or not get back to anytime soon. When I was in London, because I'm in an art museum or at the V&A in an exhibit, and who knows when I'll get back over to London. So I spent a lot of time in the V&A, in the Science Museum, in the History Museum. So I'm just really nerding out about the fact that I get to help a museum with this cool thing.
So can you tell us more about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Sam Arcade has been going for a few years. And the theme this year is breaking barriers. So they want to see games, either physical tabletop games, digital games. So it has to be a game that we can play, not something that is in a concept stage. Doesn't matter if it's old, already released, etc. They want to see a game about breaking barriers. So breaking through the idea that women are not strong, that disabled people can't be protagonists, that, you know, any barrier that you've seen or experienced as a gamer, game maker, and having your game reflect that. And so I'll be giving a keynote about the idea of breaking barriers in the industry and about in our games and what we do and how we view the industry. And they also partner with the IGDA, which is the International Game Developer Association, and MagFest. So that is August 3rd and 4th in DC, and I'm super, super excited and stoked and honored.
Yeah, this looks super cool.
I'm intimidated.
Why? Why would you be intimidated?
Intimidated by your coolness.
Oh my god, I am so not cool at all. I am
I have to disagree. Like, I'm gonna have to veto that.
I don't feel cool, and I talk about this a lot with friends. So for those that don't know, I am very much like an awkward turtle. And a lot of attention makes me deeply uncomfortable. So usually after I do panels and stuff, I run away. I like go to my room if I can in my hotel, or I go find a quiet spot. I will go to the AFK room if Take This is around, and because I grew up, and this, if this is too personal, please tell me. But I was one of those kids that got bullied, and not just because I was a nerd, but just in general I got bullied for a myriad of reasons. And so I still have that person who was bullied but gets attention paid to them their brain goes to, is this a trick?
Mm-hmm.
When's the other shoe going to drop? Do you actually mean this? And it's terrible. It's a cycle I'm trying to break. But my brain will sometimes go to that, especially when it's someone I look up to. And then they say they think I'm cool. I'm just like, I'm going to go sit in a dark corner now and think about life, because how did I get here? So it's a struggle, because I never want to seem ungrateful. I never want to have anyone think that them having come up to me or sent me an email or tweeted at me is not received in the spirit they meant it, or in the fact that for some people it's very hard to reach out. It's very hard to talk to someone that they may think a lot of. So I never want anyone to feel like they can't talk to me, but I'm very much an awkward turtle, and attention, even if it's the best attention in the world and it's for a great reason, sometimes that switch gets flipped, and I'm just like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? Where's the hidden camera? And it's a terrible thing, and I'm trying to work through it.
I'm glad you told us, because I feel like, that sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people listening feel like that sometimes. And hearing you talk about it usually makes people feel better, like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, so an interesting story. Hopefully it's interesting to people listening. So I mentioned when the D&D show I'm on premiered, it was at the Stream of Many Eyes event last year in LA, Wizards of the Coast puts on. And, I'm a big tabletop nerd. I follow some things. And I know who Matt Mercer was because of Overwatch and voice acting, but I didn't follow Critical Role. But I still knew who he was, and I was like, I thought he was cool. And I saw him, and I was like too shy to go say hello. And one of my friends who knows him, because again, tabletop folks all know each other, it seems like, brought me over to say hi, and we chatted, and I saw him a couple other times a weekend, didn't think anything about it. And then months later, a tweet I made about not running up and hugging people, because I'm also very much like, no touch me. Do not touch me if I don't know you. Because what's the movie that it's from? I know there's like a movie quote people use. It may be The Emperor's New Groove. I don't remember. But I'm very like touch aversive if I don't know you. And I made a tweet about it. Someone he follows retweeted it. And he was like, oh my God, I hope I didn't do that when we met. And I was like, how the hell do you remember meeting me? He's like, of course I remember meeting you. And I was like, okay. I don't know how you remember meeting me. Because
I've been noticed.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was like months later. It's not like we'd interacted a lot in the time since. Because I'm not in LA. I'm in Chicago. And, I'm not on, where our show is not on that Critical Role level yet. But it started off a conversation and a friendship. And so it was one of those things where I'm like, this person who is really super famous and well known and beloved thinks that I'm cool. I'm going to go sit down now.
Yeah. I have definitely had that experience with several different people that we've done like collaborations with, where I was just like, oh my gosh, I respect your work so much, and now we are talking to each other, and my brain is not sure what to do with this.
Yeah, and it's hard because I really try not to fangirl out at people, and I often go, celebrities are people too. But as the profile of what I do rises, as what I do is more visible, I have to reconcile that I sometimes get recognized. I sometimes have people that are afraid to come up and talk to me, and I'm like, that's so weird to me, but I get it because I'm often that person. I was at BlurredCon last year. I went for the first time, and someone literally shrieked out loud when they saw me.
Oh boy.
And after I pulled my heart out of my mouth, it was really humbling because they were talking about how much seeing a D&D show of all people of color meant to them. And again, it's not like I do this for kudos. I don't do this for accolades. I don't do this to be famous. And actually being super famous sounds like a nightmare. But it's in those moments that you remember that even if you never see it, or even if someone doesn't have the courage to come say hi to you, or send you an email or tweet at you, your actions still have an effect. And that's what I wish a lot of people remembered in these spaces, is that you make a difference to someone. You may not realize it, or you make a terrible, terrible impression. You can make a terrible first impression, because there are people in streaming and gaming and tabletop where they try to be a little too familiar upon meeting them. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to talk to you ever again, and I never want to work with you because I don't know you like that. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a responsibility of people who have a higher profile to think about that and not be falsely humble. That's not what I'm talking about, but be grateful, because all the people that are holding you up and thanking you and telling you what you mean right now will be all the same faces you see when you fall off the pedestal that people put you on.
Yeah, so you had started this conversation, like back at the beginning of our conversation, you had mentioned about the person who wrote to you
Mm-hmm.
after, I believe it was a panel, right?
Yep.
And it reminds me of like my own experiences. So we talk a lot about mental health on our channel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have gotten letters from people who also have like the same like mental health disorder that I do,
Mm-hmm.
and who are just like, I've never heard anybody talk about this before, and like that, like I was their like experience with it. It's very humbling, and I know that, you know, it's like you said, like not everybody is going to write to you about it, but it's so important to keep in mind that like when you're out there presenting yourself to the world, that, you know, people are going to respond to like parts of you that they see in themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, like when I started streaming, I didn't see a lot of black people, let alone black women on the platform. And now I know I'm lucky to know so many black broadcasters, know so many amazing black women who stream. You know, there's more and more people that are visible in tabletop that are, you know, non-binary, male, female. A lot more trans people are comfortable coming out and being out in these spaces. And, you know, when I see someone who's out here being a voice, or someone says that they found their voice because they saw someone like themselves, it's amazing, and it makes me happy, and it's one of those things that keeps me going, because there have been so many times, especially over the last 6 to 9 months, where I just want to say, you know what, I can't. It's too much. It's too much work. It's not enough resources. Because I got frustrated one day, and I fully admit this was out of frustration, but I'd hit a point where I was getting all hit up for a lot of free work, and for the community, do it for you know, the equivalent of kind of do it for exposure, but don't you care about the community? I do, but I still have bills to pay. And it's on my Medium account. It's like, I love what you do doesn't pay the bills. Because I hear that so often, but yet these same people, you know, for whatever reason, maybe they don't have the money. I can't assume why people don't financially support, but it gets exhausting to hear that, but not have the support come in. Because at the end of the day, whatever it is you're creating, you're doing, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, you need resources, and resources are usually money.
So you said earlier, when people ask for your consulting, they don't offer you enough money. Is it, you don't have to answer this question, what is a respectable and fair amount of money to ask for your time? Like maybe hourly or something?
It'll really depend, because it'll depend on the project and what it is they're asking me to do. So let's say, hypothetically, somebody was writing a novel, and they wanted me to read through it, the whole thing, maybe 35, I don't even know what a word count of a novel would be, because I don't usually count words in novels. But let's say a 40,000 word novel, and they give me a month, and they want a written report and or maybe a video call to go through my edits and suggestions. Anywhere from $750 to $1,000, because I've got to break that up. I've got to write a report. We're going to spend an hour to 2 hours either on the phone or a video call or what have you. So, you know, and then I've got to carry it around with me, or I've got to sit here for a couple hours each day and read through it, because I'm much faster reading than I used to be, because just out of necessity. But we're still looking at maybe a week worth of reading, digesting this, taking notes while I read, etc., and then coming back and giving you suggestions and hoping you actually take those suggestions. So same with public speaking. It's pay my travel, pay me an honorarium, depending on, do you want me to talk for an hour, 2 hours? Am I giving a workshop? Are you on the West Coast? Are you local? What is it you want out of me? But anywhere from, I'd say, $125 up to a few thousand.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end of the podcast. Is there anything that you feel like you need to say? You need to let the world know? Or just something positive, negative, neutral, anything like that?
Positive would be believe folks when they tell you who someone is. And that's in reference to mostly anything, because I'm going to be that person to say, not all skin folk are kinfolk. Just because we're both Black or both female or both queer, what have you, does not mean you unequivocally get my support just because. If you want to do this and do the work that you see others doing, don't begrudge them. Do the work yourself and understand that for all the quote-unquote success you see, there's years and years of failure and retries and reboots and everything else. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Build yourself up and bring people with you when you make it.
That's good advice. What would you say to, I know that we have a lot of younger folks that follow us. Do you have anything that you would want to say to them?
Don't be discouraged if you feel like you're not quote unquote making it. And especially if you're younger, find a mentor, find someone who's doing what you want to do, and ask them if they're taking on a mentor, if they've ever mentored someone, or if you can just ask them about what they do, because it's where you'd like to be maybe in 1 to 5 years. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, because a lot of times people are really glad to have someone to talk to about what it is they do. Like now I'd feel comfortable talking to someone about getting into diversity consulting, etc. But don't be afraid to reach out to people that are doing what you like to do or doing what you want to do. And, the worst someone can say is no.
That's great. That's amazing. So can you tell us one more time all the different ways to contact you and follow you and watch you?
Oh boy. So my username on basically all platforms is Cypher of Tyr, CYPHEROFTYR. That is Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Instagram, gamer tags. Although if you send me a random gamer tag request, you better tell me who you are or I'll block you. Business email is Tanya at ineeddiversegames.org. Our general email is indg at ineeddiversegames.org. And we have Patreon, which is basically how I keep a roof over my head and how I Need Diverse Games runs. So my personal Patreon is patreon.com/Cypher of Tyr, and for the nonprofit, it is patreon.com/IneedDivGMS. So, when you hear this, I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And, tweet at me, say hi, just don't be weird and don't be a jerk. Otherwise, I'll block you. And, I'm so glad we got a chance to hang out. Hopefully we can all hang out in person since, we
I know, you're local.
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't want to say anything, but now that you said it,
no, that's fine.
Should I ask if she wants to hang out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. So I think that we've actually been following you since we were all mentioned in an article together.
A long time ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, like long time ago.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just been really great kind of like picking your brain about all these topics. You're very, very knowledgeable, and it's just, it's been great.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And this was a lot of fun. I'm sure, as you know, it's a lot easier to be on the other side of the mic and just talk. But this was great, and whenever you want to sit and chat again, I'm more than happy to come back and hang out with y'all virtually or in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. cool.
All right.
She likes us.
Yes, you're both really kick-ass. I love you.
Yeah. And yeah, we're kick-ass. Wow.
Wow, she thinks we're cool. Wow.
So for anyone listening, make sure to follow Tanya on social media. If you want to follow Mari or I'm at Geek Remix a lot on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr.
I'm at Geek Remix. So
thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.